Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? All right, folks, I'm back from Liberia. Today is Thursday, February 24th, 2022. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Guilty, guilty, guilty. A federal jury in Minneapolis finds the 3 ex-cops connected to the killing of George Floyd guilty on all counts of violating his civil rights. We'll break down what this means. Hear from reporter Georgia Fort, who's been following this case as well. A huge win for the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, second time this week. Also, Russia invades Ukraine, killing and injuring hundreds. What does this mean for the United States? We'll talk with retired Lieutenant General Russell Honore about what's going on there in Europe. Breonna Taylor's sister gets kicked out of a court over a T-shirt. We'll explain what was on the shirt and the judge who said bias could affect the jury. Dozens of black men filled the Minneapolis City Hall to demand the firing of the officer who killed Amir Locke during the execution of a no-knock warrant. Also, folks, in a Roland Martin Unfiltered exclusive, we're talking to the Florida man facing attempted murder charges of a law enforcement officer after police burst into his home. He fired back to protect his family, and of course, the intruders were breaking into his home. His 1-year-old was injured after falling out of a police cruiser. Folks, there's a lot going on in this case. He and his lawyer will be here to unpack all of it. Plus, Texas Lieutenant Governor, he wants professors to lose tenure if they teach critical race theory. I told you what the white Republicans were all about. We'll break down what's happening there in my home state. Folks, it is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now.
three former Minneapolis cops who stood around while Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd, they are going to prison. That's after a federal jury found all three today guilty on all counts of violating the civil rights of George Floyd. Two Thou, J. Alexander King, as well as Thomas Lane. They were charged with depriving Floyd of his right to medical care when Officer Derek Chauvin kneeled on Floyd's neck for nearly 9 minutes. Thou and Lane were also charged with failing to intervene to stop Chauvin. Chauvin was convicted of murder last year in a state court and pleaded guilty in December in the federal case. Now, folks, this is a huge, huge victory for the Department of Justice. Second time in 1 week. The Ahmaud Arbery guilty verdicts there in Georgia. Now this as well. This speaks to when you have someone like Kristen Clark leading the Civil Rights Division, where they take seriously these cases and sending more and more of these cops to prison. Folks, we're going to be hearing from reporter Georgia Fort a little bit later. She, of course, is covering this, and so we'll hear from her to get her thoughts and perspective on this as well. We also are reaching out to some legal folks to break this thing down. I want to go to my panel right now. Greg Carr, of course, Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. He joins us. Glad to have Greg on the show. Reese Colbert, she, of course, Black Women in Views. Of course, you see her. Thanks for filling in for me while I was out in Liberia. And also joining us is Larry Walker, assistant professor, University of Central Florida. All right, let's get right into it. Greg, I'm going to start with you. Again, second time this week, huge victories by the Department of Justice, holding these folks accountable. This is what people have been demanding. Justice, sending cops to prison who do wrong.
Yes, sir. Certainly, we know justice would be them not being killed in the first place, pure justice. But in the wake of the killings, people have been demanding that the government, that the state, exercise its full authority. And you're absolutely right. Kudos to Kristen Clark, Department of Justice. And of course, now we'll see what the sentencing is. The judge can give them anywhere from a year to life. They still face state sentencing on aiding and abetting murder. But ultimately and finally, this really does send a message. Juries are willing to convict young Cameron in Kentucky. Listen up, young boy. If we have enough muscle to get the right people in office, then prosecutors have wide discretion. And in this case, the Department of Justice exercises it. So this should send a message to those who won't use the power of the state. In this case, it worked out.
You know, a lot of people yell, holler, and scream, Reese, oh my goodness, Biden, Trump, there's no difference. Let me say it again. For all you loudmouth asses out there, that's all you do is run your mouths. If you want to understand the difference between a Biden Department of Justice and a Trump Department of Justice, the Trump Department of Justice pulled back on consent decrees. They were not being aggressive at going after cops. They would not want to prosecute cops. This is what happens when you vote.
Absolutely. It makes a huge difference who is running the DOJ. And I know Merrick Garland gets a lot of, crap because he hasn't brought charges and people aren't aware of an investigation about Donald Trump. But this is what we really care the most about, which is the civil rights of Black people in this country. And there's no doubt that obviously the Garland DOJ under the leadership of Kristen Clark is absolutely taking these cases seriously, and they're getting convictions. And that's what matters, because we are not just satisfied with charges being brought, knowing that they're going to be acquitted. And it is a new day, as Dr. Carr said. Maybe this will put some fear into some folks, and to see that even if you don't get charged with murder or manslaughter, these civil rights charges are going to hold you accountable one way or another. So as much as the Daniel Camerons of the world are on the side of the cops, the U.S. Department of Justice is saying that this is over, no more.
The thing here, Larry, that I think is important, and that is when we talk about justice, when we talk about these civil rights convictions, this sends a message to every single cop out there. If you stand around and you watch one of your fellow cops commit an act of wrongdoing, even you can go to prison. The failure to intervene was an important charge here.
Yeah, it really was, Roland. And, it's important to hold everyone responsible. Like those gentlemen, officers held down George Floyd. And you mentioned it was almost nearly 10 minutes of him choking and pleading for his life. But Roland, I want to add something else, and I applaud the DOJ for going 2 for 2 this week, as you talked about. It reminds me that the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act didn't pass, right? So Congress didn't do the right thing. And, obviously, in terms of the verdict today is really important. But I think it's mindful of those civil rights organizations and those who advocate to make sure that members of the Black community are treated humanely, is that we have to continue to push members, particularly on the Senate side, to make sure that we get some kind of policing reform bill. And obviously, we're heading towards midterms. But obviously, like I said, it's great that we're 2 for 2 this week. But it's be mindful that we didn't pass the Policing Act, and these kind of events will happen again in the future.
And absolutely, Greg. I mean, look, we still want to see the George Floyd Justice Act passed by Congress. But while that has yet to go forward, you still have to have the prosecution when it comes to these officers. You had Attorney General Keith Ellison, win the conviction on the state level. Now you have Kristen Clark's Civil Rights Division, the DOJ, win the conviction on the federal level.
Absolutely. And to echo Professor Walker, yes, sir, brother. While there has been no significant legislation passed, and while open saboteurs like Tim Mission Accomplished Scott have ensured that nothing would generate any support from the White Nationalist Party, let's, to quote Malcolm X in a different context, make this observation. There was no new law that the Department of Justice used. So it is absolutely by the discretion of that unit. And to echo what you said, Reese, is absolutely accurate. We know that Tody Barr would never have done this, but there was no new law on the books. In other words, this sends a message.
Barr or Sessions.
That's exactly, I mean, if this statute can be used in this fashion, then it is really up to who is going to pull the trigger. And I'll add one other thing. As we saw last week, as the judge felt sorry for whatever reasons, now the last line of defense for some of these white nationalists is going to be the judge. So again, we're going to have to really pay strict attention to sentencing and who the judge is.
And she's up for re-election. Let me say it again.
There you go. Come on.
I keep trying to walk people through this here, and these people get mad at me. All right, Roland, you sitting here, you came in for the Democrats. No, I'm talking about who is likely going to rule fairly and when it comes to seeking justice. And for all y'all who want to sit on your asses and don't vote, you got a primary coming up in Texas. You got other things. This is why voting matters. That judge who sat there and cried for Kim Potter is up for re-election, meaning she can be thrown out of office.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
So again, folks, just tuning in, the 3 cops who were involved, who stood around and watched Derek Chauvin kill George Floyd, those 3 cops found guilty of violating the civil rights of George Floyd. They are going to go to prison. And so we'll certainly give you an update. We're waiting to hear from Georgia Fort, who's been covering this case in Minneapolis for the last few weeks. All right, folks, let's go talk about this international crisis happening in Europe, where Russia has invaded Ukraine. Today, President Joe Biden spoke about what is taking place and made perfectly clear where he stands and where the West stands when it comes to this act of aggression by Vladimir Putin.
We've been transparent with the world. We've shared declassified evidence about Russia's plans and cyber attacks and false pretexts so that there could be no confusion or cover-up about what Putin was doing. Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences. Today, I'm authorizing additional strong sanctions and new limitations on what can be exported to Russia. This is going to impose severe cost on the Russian economy, both immediately and over time. We have purposely designed these sanctions to maximize the long-term impact on Russia and to minimize the impact on the United States and our allies. I want to be clear, the United States is not doing this alone. For months, we've been building a coalition of partners representing well more than half the global economy. 27 members of the European Union, including France, Germany, Italy, as well as the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and many others, to amplify the joint impact of our response. I just spoke with the G7 leaders this morning, and we're in full and total agreement. We will limit Russia's ability to do business in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen to be part of the global economy. We'll limit their ability to do that. We're going to stunt the ability to finance and grow the Russian military. We're going to impose and we're going to impair their ability to compete in high-tech 21st century economy. We've already seen the impact of our actions on Russia's currency and the ruble, which early today hit its weakest level ever in history. The Russia stock market plunged today. The Russian government borrowing rate spiked by over 15%. In today's actions, we've now sanctioned Russian banks that together hold around $1 trillion in assets. We've cut off Russia's largest bank, a bank that holds more than 1/3 of Russia's banking assets by itself, cut it off from the U.S. financial system. And today, we're also blocking 4 more major banks.
Former President Barack Obama issued this statement. Here's a 5-paragraph statement. I'm going to read paragraph 4. There may be some economic consequences to such sanctions, giving Russia a significant role in world energy markets, but that's a price we should be willing to pay to take a stand on the side of freedom. For over the long term, we all face a choice between a world in which might makes right and autocrats are free to impose their will through force, or a world in which free people everywhere have the power to determine their own future. Retired Lieutenant General Russell Honore joins us right now. Glad to have you here. Lieutenant General, it's very, I got to go here. I'm listening to all these conservatives. I'm listening to these people on the Fox News. Oh, America's weak. Oh, Biden is horrible. They're praising Putin. Okay, as if he's this great. I mean, Donald Trump talks about, oh, how it was smart to do what he did. And then they're like, oh, Biden is weak. I'm sorry. Are these folks saying what? Sending American troops? That ain't going to happen.
I don't think so, Roland. This is what happened when you lose a democracy. Russia really never had a democracy. They bought into these dictator leaders. They gave a sham to the word democracy. They don't have proper voting. And this is what happened when an authoritarian person like Putin, with a big army that's well equipped and with nuclear weapons. This is what happened if we turn the world over to autocrats. Just think about if we end up and we lose our democracy here in America, and we get a president that's a dictator that can overrule all of the laws in the country and decide he want to go take Canada or go take Mexico. This is why we have to work hard and vote, as you say, and save our democracy. You know, for 80 years, we've kept peace in Europe. At one time, we had 500,000 men and women in Europe. And after the Cold War, we drew that down. And under Donald Trump, we drew it down even more. We have the lowest number of soldiers and sailors, airmen, and Marines we have in Europe in 80 years. And here's what's happened. He took an opportunity. He is a thug with nukes, is the bottom line of what Putin is. He is a thug with nukes. And now he's invaded this country that don't have the equipment he has because they were just defending their borders. And here he has invaded them and now threatens to overturn their government, which he will do at the pace he's going now, even with an insurgency following.
So what should the American response be? Because again, when I listen to all these Republicans, I keep hearing them, and I was just challenging Armstrong Williams, who was complaining. I said, okay, what's y'all plan? John James, who's running for Congress in Michigan, keeps saying, we should be doing more. Okay, like what?
Well, one thing, we need to reset NATO. We need to declare Russia the enemy in NATO. For years, we have treated Russia with kid gloves and traded with them. We need to isolate Russia. The president is on way to do that with some of the measures he set, But we need the globe to isolate Russia from any technology. We can go as far as sending their students back home and expelling their diplomats. We have to make this painful and shameful for what Russia has done. The next thing we can do is build our army back in Europe. We took the Corps headquarters out. That's a 3-star headquarters. We reduced the 4-star headquarters to a 3-star headquarters because everybody thought we had peace and we didn't want to pay for the defense of Europe. But when Europe goes to war, the world go to war. World War I, where did it happen? World War II, where did it happen? And now we're on the eve of World War III. We need to get our defenses back in Europe.
So they mentioned the sanctions. Do you believe that those sanctions are going to have an impact?
By all economists, yes. I don't think it'd be in time to save Ukraine in its integrity the way it is now, Roland. But it's going to take time. It will have an impact. I believe the president and his experts. But for the purpose of this invasion, I don't think it's going to have much impact at all in the next 20 to 30 days. By that time, overtop the government is what I believe, bro.
And for the people, again, I'm already seeing these people, this is going to be an impact on our gas prices. Well, damn. Excuse me if what happens in another part of the world somehow disrupts what happens here, but my goodness, I don't care what. Look, if China does something, Russia does something, we're now living in a global economy.
Roland, a message to the American people, to all our people. A lot of them are suffering from disasters and never coming out of poverty. We've got to suck it up. In World War II, we stopped producing cars for 3 years, and gas was rationed. It's not going to get that bad with this war, where we are, but we're all going to have to sacrifice. It's going to cost us more for stuff that we use every day. What the Commerce Department and the government need to do is control the greed that's happening right now with American industry and the CEOs who are patting themselves on the back using this aftermath of the pandemic and now this war to raise prices for no other reason than to raise profit. We're all going to suffer. Look what happened on Wall Street, and it's going to take more plunges. Everybody's going to pay for this war. We're going to suffer during the war with a pandemic on top of it, and we need to suck it up and find ways we individually in our churches, in our communities, that can send hope, prayers, and money to the people in Ukraine. Because if we lose this democracy, that democracy, ours could be next, Roland.
All right, then. Retired Lieutenant General Russell Honoré, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Good day, sir.
Go to my panel here, Reese. I'm telling you, I'm sitting here and you're listening to these crazy right-wing nuts. And, for them, Putin is the man. He is there. He is just amazing. Putin is also a white supremacist.
Yes, and I need Black folks to also understand that, because one of the ways that we have been targeted with disinformation is that Putin is somehow an ally to the Black community, which is absurd. But for years, since even the 2016 election, Russia has been targeting Black social media specifically, driving a wedge with the racial divide that we already have in this country, exploiting that, and really honing in their techniques on how to really infiltrate the way that we communicate with each other through algorithms. They use troll farms, they use inauthentic accounts, which are then amplified by actual Black people and picked up on because they know how to communicate in a way that is impactful, that's catchy, with memes or with, catchphrases or whatever the situation may be. And so we have to understand that. I'm not saying that all Black people have fallen for it, but I do want to be very clear that there are people who have fallen for it and are now perpetuating that. Because I saw a comment that, well, Putin said RIP to George Floyd and he called out racism in America. No shit. Of course, America is racist. Russia knows that. And they've been exploiting that, especially to the detriment of Black people when you look at what they've done with disinformation with COVID-19 and a number of things. So Russia is not our friend. And I understand that people feel like this ain't none of my business. And then another thing that they put out there was this whole that Russia is denazifying Ukraine. So that Nazi, neo-Nazi thing is another buzzword that I've seen being picked up.
Yeah,
that I
because the
warned about.
Ukrainian president, he's Jewish, who lost family members in the Holocaust, but he's a Nazi.
Exactly.
Right.
But that's the kind of thing that's catchy. That's the kind of thing that catches on. And so when, not all, but you see some black folks, they see neo-Nazis. Oh, why are we defending the neo-Nazis? Why are we going? No, it's propaganda. It's disinformation. So Putin is not our ally. I understand that we have a lot of things going on. I mean, I don't know if we're going to talk about it tonight, but child poverty has increased exponentially now that the child tax credit expired at the end of December. We're back where we started from in 2020 with child poverty. We're still in a pandemic. There are a number of things that we have not addressed in this country. However, we do have a stake in the world community, because if World War III pops off, which could happen if Russia is emboldened and they hit any one of the neighboring countries to Ukraine. Ukraine is surrounded by NATO countries. If Article 5 is invoked, then we all in this shit. So when General Honore says "suck it up," or what General Honore is saying that we should be aware of this and we should be invested in it, it's not just out of pure altruism for Ukraine. You know, given that there are tons of armed conflicts throughout the country, throughout the world, including in Africa and in Middle East, etc. But this has an implication because of the geopolitical landscape that we're talking about and the proximity to NATO countries, which would involve the United States getting involved with military action. So there's a lot of skin in the game that we have. We're fortunate enough to only have to deal with economic consequences and not necessarily geographical consequences.
Right.
We're not likely to see a land invasion, but Russia does have nuclear weapons. So we have to back off a little bit, some of this bluster and some of this puffing up of the chest. Now is not the time to get in I don't know if I should say this, but let me say a pissing contest. I'll say that that's more PC than what I was thinking originally. But now is not the time to get into a pissing contest when we are talking about two nuclear or multiple nuclear armed powers. Not to say that we back down, not to say we punk out, but we have to really be measured in how we do about this. And we have to be effective in trying to exhaust non-military options.
Larry, it is, again, hilarious to watch how the party that just held up Ronald Reagan as the greatest thing in the world, they are literally rooting for Russia against the United States.
Yeah, so Roland, you know me, I'm a former congressional staffer and worked with, members on both sides of the aisle. And I have to tell you that every time I turn on TV, on social media, I'm shocked that their policymakers, obviously we can have another conversation about some of the propaganda we see on cable news, but I'm shocked to see policymakers, like I said, typically from party that, talked about Ronald Reagan and, and taking down, the wall falling down, et cetera, that are, actively utilizing, Russian propaganda and really selling it to the American public. And it's obviously dangerous. One of the things I want to add in terms of, where we are in terms of where Russia invading Ukraine is, it's important to keep in mind, and Rishi talked about this, is that, in terms of those NATO countries, right? So, Putin is just kind of being nostalgic as it relates to kind of talking about the former USSR and countries like Ukraine and other European countries. But those days are long gone, right? And so his response is, and what has happened with his response? Countries like Poland, just releasing within the last couple of weeks, have dramatically increased their defense budget, right? And so General Henry talked about, during the Trump administration and pulling back some U.S. troops. What we're going to see probably the next few weeks and months is countries like Poland, other NATO countries, not only the United States selling them more armaments, but also in terms of sending more U.S. troops. So what we essentially have now, Roland, is Cold War 2.0.
Greg, I was looking at some comments and I was seeing people that are saying, I mean, this is of no concern to us. Actually, it is. It has an economic impact on this country. I saw others who were saying, oh, well, this is why we should have never fought the Keystone Pipeline. I'm going, okay, that wasn't an American pipeline. Because of the oil that we get from Russia, how about we learn to wean ourselves off of oil, so then you're not dependent upon what happens in another country to impact energy in the United States?
Sure. Well, I'll tell you what, if the bombing today in north central Ukraine had pierced that concrete around the Chernobyl waste dump, we wouldn't be having this conversation about whether or not this impacts us. We'd be somewhere trying to say our last prayers. So that having been said on a very direct point, John Henry Clark used to always say, in some stories, there are no good guys. So I'm listening to Joe Biden. Joe Biden in the United States of America. Europe was Asia's forgotten Wild West. They invaded an entire hemisphere and then declared a unilateral declaration of war on an entire continent, the one we came from. Talk about invasion. But that built the wealth that created Europe, and the financial centers moved from Lisbon and Seville, eventually to Paris, then London, and then in the 20th century, they moved to New York after World Wars I and II because Germany, Berlin wanted in on the action. Now, who haven't I mentioned yet? Well, I haven't mentioned Moscow. Why? Because Russia didn't have that colonial empire. They built their empire in the neighborhood. And so what we end up seeing now, what we're witnessing now, is the end of really, in some ways, 5 centuries of Western empire building. They can't, Russell Honore scared the hell out of me. First of all, there is no we. Governments act in their perceived best interests. Modi was out today saying he got 3,000 Indian students trying to get in the embassy in Kiev to look for a sanctuary. You got all this going on, but here's where it gets very interesting. After World War II, the anti-colonial movements came into full fruition. And as people broke free, what you see is the Soviet Union trying to assert itself as the leader of this anti-Western bloc movement, NATO versus the Warsaw Pact. Well, that fell apart. But there's a country I haven't mentioned yet, and that country just finished the Olympics. In fact, Vladimir Putin met with President Xi in China in Beijing a couple of weeks ago, and you know what? You can't stop the Russians. They annexed Crimea in 2014. Honore, please, brother, don't pull us into this bullshit. I'm going to tell you what's about to happen next. Keep your eye on Taiwan. They are rewriting the map for the next century. China is sitting. In fact, Joe Biden had a shot across the bow today when he said anybody associated with them will be harmed by the stain. Guess what? You ain't even got that. You ain't got that muscle no more, Joe. What we have to understand is we need to become cognizant of world politics. It all affects us. And I want to say one other thing. When you saw the Kenyan ambassador at the UN Security Council the other day say, we Africans know very well the politics of invasion and what it means after colonialism to keep those colonial boundaries. And rather than everybody invade, because there are Igbo on either side of the line in Nigeria, there are Tutsis on either side of Rwanda and Burundi, some of them are Eastern Congo. What the Kenya ambassador said is, we do not endorse the invasion of Ukraine, chasing some separatist movement, because we could have done the same thing in Africa and we'd be at war forever. I should say one other thing. Those white nationalists in the White Nationalist Party, of course they embrace Putin. Putin is a racist. Putin is looking at Ukraine the same way the white nationalists look at us. Look at the 4 of us. There's no such thing as an American. Will y'all please stop believing in fairy tales? These people have sworn an oath. It's either white supremacy or ruin. And that's Russia, and that's Florida, and that's Texas, and that's the whole white nationalist party. That's it.
Folks, we will continue to monitor what takes place as Ukraine fights the Russians and see what the fallout, the impact is going to be on the rest of the world, including the United States. All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back. More on Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. We also are going to open the phone lines, get your thoughts about the trial of the 3 ex-officers found guilty for standing around, doing nothing, failing to intervene as George Floyd was killed by one of their own. Pull the number up, please, so we can show it for folks to be able to call in. Remember, if you're a member of our Bring the Funk fan club, you get to call in as opposed to other folks who have not supported us. That's one of the perks. Okay, we have the number? All right. Why are we taking so long? No, we're going to wait for the number. (202-890-1199). Call 202-890. Pull the graphic up, please. Thank you. 202-890-1099. 202. If y'all can get rid of that thing on the side, please, it'll be great so we can see it. Thank you. So, folks, if you remember the Bring the Funk fan club, call 202-890-1199, 202-890-1199. Y'all can share your thoughts about, again, the three officers, ex-cops found guilty in the death of George Floyd. You can also talk about Russia, Ukraine. Anything that's on your mind, please give us a call. I'll be back on Roland Martin Unfiltered in a moment.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
I'm Dr. Greg Carr, inviting you to take your seat at the Black Table, and we'll be discussing the past, present, and future of Black History Month.
But we need to understand what the principal ask is of African people to understand themselves.
Take your seat and join the conversation, only on the Black Star Network.
So what's up? This is your boy, Earthquake.
Hi, I'm Chaley Rose, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, the American Taliban, they are at it again. I'm talking about Republicans in Texas. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is not at all happy over the whole issue of critical race theory. This fool now wants to challenge and get rid of tenure in the state. This is him talking to the white supremacist Tucker Carlson.
So about a week ago, the faculty council at the University of Texas, they said that they're going to teach critical race theory. And then they followed up with something that really got my attention. That got my attention. But then they said the faculty council takes the position in this resolution that the council authority shall never, ever have any intrusion from anyone outside, including the legislature or the Board of Regents. In other words, you can't tell us anything about how we perform our job, what we teach the students, or what we say. And I thought, just who are these people that think that somehow academic freedom, which we support, gives them the ability to be unaccountable to anyone, including the taxpayers, including their Board of Regents? They want to be able to say anything to anyone. And Tucker, we've talked about critical race theory a lot, but people still sometimes don't understand the difference. And we want race to be talked about. As Republicans, myself as a lieutenant governor, I want slavery to be examined. I want racism in America to be examined through the years, whether it's in the business sector, the private sector, in sports. But critical race theory doesn't teach that. It teaches that because you're white, you're a racist, and because you're a person of color, you're a victim. And they want to teach through critical race theory that we are a nation that's racist and everything is based on racism. And that's what critical race theory is, and that's what we cannot allow our professors to teach the young men and women to come to university. We banned it in Texas in K through 12 this year.
Okay, now, in the same state, the former CEO of the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, Bill Magnus, testified that he was instructed by Governor Greg Abbott to do whatever it took to prevent any more blackouts during the 2021 winter storm. Yet he also said that the governor made it clear to keep prices at a maximum of $9,000 per megawatt hour, leading to billions of dollars in profits for power generators and local utilities swamped in millions of dollars of debt. In the same state, Abbott, more than Taliban, has said, if you're a parent with a transgender child, you should be investigated by Child Protective Services. Larry, I want to start with you. When I'm using American Taliban for a reason. And when you look at not just what's happening in Texas, you look at this gay bill in Florida at the House just passed, where they're targeting, where literally the bill says that students who are gay can be outed by the schools. The Republicans are operating and living in this culture war. They're saying that Democrats, they're the ones who are losing the culture war. And what you're dealing with here are, frankly, folks who are no different than the Taliban in Afghanistan.
Yeah, you know what, Roland? A lot of this is political theater, but it's dangerous, right? So you talked about some of the issues, CRT, the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. And a lot of it, when you watch the interview, Lieutenant Governor, he said that, we wouldn't get rid of CRT, but at the same time, he talked about we want to talk about racism. It doesn't make any sense to me, right? It's a contradiction because you can utilize CRT as a lens to examine, you want to talk about the transatlantic slave trade or Jim Crow or grandfather clauses or black codes, et cetera. You can use CRT as a mechanism to examine all those issues, right? And also this idea of academic freedom. It doesn't make any sense. If you believe in academic freedom, then people who teach about use critical race theory or any other framework should have the opportunity to talk to students about some of these issues. And listen, as we use the phrase culture war, and as people of African descent in this country, it's been 400 plus years in terms of dealing with the challenge, economic, political, social challenges in this country. And it makes no sense to say, once again, that we want to talk about these issues, but we don't want to give professors or other academics, even though we talk about like professional development for corporations, et cetera, we don't want to give them the tools they need to utilize to have these important conversations. And once again, we can't keep spinning like a top because every few years, over the last several decades, we're back on these issues relating to idea of erasure. Don't want to talk about members of the LGBTQ community, and we don't want to talk about the challenges people of African descent have encountered in this country. And we have to have open dialogue because once again, if we don't, we talk about the same issues negatively impacting the Black community. We talk about policing, or we talk about banking and discrimination, or we talk about Black professors, because really we're talking about primarily is Black professors at post-secondary institutions having the academic freedom to talk about a variety of issues. So now we need to confront these people and tell them that if you believe in democracy and equity, then you cannot say that you can't have a conversation about critical race theory. Really, we know race is the real issue here, that you can't have a conversation about CRT and use other devices to challenge students and unpack this country's history.
See, Greg, people need to understand, and I'm using, again, American Taliban for a reason. Florida had a couple of bills. One of them was the Stop Woke Act, which says that if there's any discussion or any corporate training that makes people uncomfortable about race, it has to stop. And then the other bill deals with it was called the Don't Say Gay bill. I'm outlining this because what you're seeing, it's only one party that's doing it. It's in Florida, it's in Mississippi, it's in Alabama, it's in Texas, it's in Arkansas. You're seeing it in Georgia. You're seeing it in Tennessee. This is the Confederacy in 2022. These are people who are using the power of elected office to constitute or to keep in place a nation that they want to live in. These are people who are being driven by crazed and deranged white conservative evangelicals who would not know Jesus if Jesus walked into the room. What they're doing is not biblical. What they're doing is not it's not about service to the country. It is about maintaining their white, largely male order.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's and it's right. American Taliban is appropriate because they want a theocracy. And we know that if Jesus Christ, the historical Jesus, were alive today in the United States, he'd be perhaps a victim of a no-knock warrant in whatever shelter he was staying in, since he didn't have any visible means of support, and he'd probably be killed. Now, when we think about this, in terms of the LGBTQ issue or non-issue in this sense, because they're so stupid they don't even make good criminals. What I've been advising people to do in places like Texas and Virginia, once they get their hotline up, flood it. See, my grandbaby came home today and said that y'all left Harriet Tubman out of the curriculum, and she was traumatized. In other words, they so stupid they don't even write laws that make any sense. But remember when Neil Gorsuch came out and said in 20, I guess it was 21, where he interpreted the statute to say that that gender included transgender and those, and I think it was the Georgia case, if memory serves me correctly. But the point I'm trying to make is that's before Amy Coney Barrett got on the bench, the handmaid. They want a theocracy. Now, I don't know what it is about Texas electing or sending into office these cartoon character looking people, whether it be Shovelmouth Abbott or that knockoff generic Muppet Lieutenant Governor Patrick. But let's be clear. They've been going after tenure for years. Everybody in higher education knows that. Now, because they don't like the idea of people learning anything. This kind of white nationalism relies on ignorance. It feeds on ignorance. And the irony, of course, is when the Texas Austin faculty senate voted 41-5 for their resolution, one of those people who voted or who represents that is Kevin Copley, a brother, who is the chair of Ed Psych at the University of Texas, Austin, who's a strong supporter and teaches an element of critical race theory, and our frat brother, who is now at the University of Kentucky, Greg Vincent, who I went to law school with. Greg Vincent taught a critical race theory class at the law school a few years ago. Why am I bringing that up? Texas will, if they get their way, not only damage their higher ed system, any self-respecting academic won't want to work in the state of Texas, which is part of their plan. These folk want to have a theocracy, and I think American Taliban is entirely appropriate. They want to have it their way or not have a country, and they might get their wish. Not to have it their way wish, not have a country wish.
Reese, this is important when you look at all of these different stories, because again, those who are in power are the ones who are wielding it. And so when I hear people with their nonsense and they say, oh, here y'all go, oh, you sitting here pushing Democrats on us. Okay, this is real simple. Who do you want to be in power? Who do you want passing laws? Who do you want using their efforts to undermine the courts? Who do you want to be in control? We've seen this week 3 huge political gerrymandering decisions in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in North Carolina. Chris Christie, lead the Republican efforts on gerrymandering, is pissed. Oh, these partisan courts. I'm sorry, y'all passed new congressional districts that was partisan, but now you want to call the courts partisan because they won't allow y'all to do what y'all were going to do. And here's the deal, in Ohio, that's a 4-3 Republican majority on that court. North Carolina, 4-3 Democratic majority. It's a Republican majority in Pennsylvania. But see, they don't want nobody to know all of that sort of stuff. What people need to understand is, again, these white conservative evangelicals do not care about Jesus. They don't care about the poor. They don't care about black people. They care about power.
Right. And let me tell you something. The Republicans are giving big, who gonna check me, boo energy. Because what they're banking on is that they are able, and they're being successful in some places like Texas and Mississippi, gerrymandering it to hell to the point to where black people's votes are diluted or completely disregarded. And what they're doing is deputizing. One of the key themes that I'm noticing, if you look at the abortion restrictions in Texas, if you look at the hotlines that they're setting up, don't say gay hotlines, the CRT hotlines, the mandatory forced reporting of transitioning trans kids. All of these measures are about deputizing their white supremacist followers and weaponizing these laws in a way to exert their will, as you said. And as Dr. Carr said, a theocracy. And this is what it's all about. It's about suppressing differences. As Dr. Walker and Dr. Carr pointed out, it's about undermining Black faculty, because that's who they expect to be most impacted by this. They expect, and I believe it, I forget whether it was you or Dr. Carr that said, Dr. Carr, won't even want to go to Texas and teach there. Who wants to be bothered with Texas goddamn abortion laws that's fucked up? They got CRT laws that's messed. You could go on down the list of everything messed up. The power grid is messed up. Like, Texas is a hot ass mess right now, and your vote don't count. But what they're banking on across the country is that Democrats are going to sulk their way through, not getting everything on their checklist, and be demoralized. And when they're not demoralized, actually suppressed in terms of their vote, the structural suppression of their vote. And they're going to continue to exert their white minority power over the entire country. So it's on us and how we respond. I'm not terribly optimistic in Texas. There's primaries going on right now for governor and a number of things, but I'm not terribly optimistic, because what I see is the energy about, and that's fine if this is your opinion, but cancel student debt, or the energy is about this bill that didn't pass and that bill didn't pass. Meanwhile, the Republicans are leaving no stone unturned in terms of remaking the way of American life in their states. So we have to respond with full force. And at a minimum, the least you can do is vote their asses out.
Well, I've said to people continuously, if there is any Republican who is supportive of Donald Trump and MAGA, they got to go. I don't care who they are and what they do, they got to go. All right, folks, when we come back, we're going to tell you this, give you this exclusive. This story out of Florida is unbelievable. Father is trying to protect his family. Now he's charged with attempted murder for protecting his family? Really? Wait till we unpack this story, folks. And if you want to understand why Black-owned media matters, this story next explains it to you. I've said this, and I'm not even going to waste my time getting into the petty, childish stuff with some of these Black gossip blogs out here. But folks, one of the reasons why you need to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, because we do factual news. We don't just post crap to get clicks. We don't do gossip. We don't do mess. We do real news. That's what we do. Always have, always will. That's why you must download the Black Star Network app and pass the word to all your friends and family. We're available on all platforms: Android phone, Apple phone, Android TV, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also, if you want to support what we do, join our Bring the Funk fan club, where your dollars allow, make it possible for us to do what we do. I told you, I just got back from 8 days in Liberia. We have some tremendous content we're going to be sharing with you. And so, can't wait to show it with you. Of course, Cash App is, first of all, guys, that's the wrong graphic. Where's the one with the address? I told you how to get rid of that one. I told you that. Control room, I need y'all to get it together. Thank you. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com. Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. I'll be right back.
I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
You read about it in history, you talk about it, you see it on our side, of the United States, but to actually come here and see where this story of slavery started, and connecting the dots, it's just a wow factor for me right now.
It's going to be dark inside. You might not see too much, but you're going to feel everything.
Just imagine to see prisons in the yard in the United States.
A lot of us, if we're real honest, what is required in 2019 going into 2020, essentially for us to be reprogrammed from what they taught us needs to be removed and extracted.
It just doesn't make sense that the richest continent in the world should be inhabited by the poorest people in the world.
Part of that is by design. Self-hatred has been a very tragic part of our whole existence. And I'm not blaming anybody for it, but if you look at most characterizations of being of African descent in the world, it's with these kind of tags.
I always say, you're going to do a lot of shopping. They go, oh, I don't think so. And then they come, so they brought limited reserves, and then they spend all the time running to the ATM because they see all these clothes they want and fabric they want. It's overwhelming. I've been here for 8 years, and I'm still taking pictures out of my car because it's a feast for the eyes on any given day.
The kind of opportunities you have in Africa, you don't have those in America. The kind of money that you can make in Africa, very few of you would have that opportunity to do that in America. Cordy, who was working for the Congress in the United States, she has started a waste management company. She's the #1 here in Ghana now. She looked at
dollar signs in trash.
There it is.
What used to be jeans.
Used to be jeans.
Is now a huge rug.
In Ghana alone, we have a 2 million unit deficit in housing.
2 million.
2 million.
Seven of the 10 fastest growing economies right now are African nations. Why in the world would we not be trying to figure out how to connect? Because the Lebanese are, the Chinese are, everybody else is doing it. We will be crazy to do it. And it's with people who look like us. We will be crazy to do it, crazy to do it, crazy to do it. right, folks. So we had some technical issues there, but we're now good. So that our 10-part Ghana docuseries on the year of return, it is going to we air first starting next Friday. Our next edition of Rolling with Roland is going to be on Wednesday. But of course, the first part, you don't want to miss it, folks. We have some amazing stories. You saw that promo right there. I'm really looking forward to you getting a chance to see what we covered there when we went to Ghana. And of course, over the next several weeks, you also see more of the stories that we did there in Liberia, including next week we'll be airing my interview with President George Weah. We sat down for a one-on-one interview, and so really look forward to showing you that as well, plus some other interviews that we did there in Liberia. And shout out to the people in Liberia. This is Greg. You see this is one of the outfits they gave me. So I know you want this black and gold, Greg. I know.
Bruh.
I saw you peeping it.
Bruh, but Roland, you know the other thing too, bruh. Every African country you go to has a little different style. That style right there, that's the Liberian style, and it is cold-blooded. I know you got the pants with it too.
I didn't get the pants, but they did give me a whole bunch of fabrics. So I can have some pants made. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. That's gonna happen. That's gonna happen. So folks, I really look forward to showing y'all this here. Again, we don't only keep in mind the reason we call this Black Star Network was named after the cruise line, the Marcus Garvey. That was the inspiration because he wanted to connect African Americans in the country with the African diaspora, and that's really how we're utilizing the Black Star Network app, being able to showcase stories that other people are not covering. I told y'all I don't waste time with gossip and all that sort of stuff. I leave it to other people. We do real journalism here, telling real stories, such as the next story here, which is a Black Star Network exclusive, folks. So check this. This is an amazing story. It's a crazy story, but also speaks to what we face as African Americans. Okay. For the first time, a Florida father is facing charges of attempted murder of a law enforcement officer. And he's speaking out. Folks, on February 3rd, Corey Marino Jr. was at home with his 2 children when the cops entered his home. Startled, he fired his gun, assuming it was intruders. While Corey was in custody, the kids were placed in the back seat of a police vehicle waiting for their mother. Police say the 1-year-old was leaning against the car door when an officer opened it. The child fell out of the car, sustaining several facial injuries. We're joined right now on the show by Corey Marino Jr. and his lawyer, James Bryant. They join us from Florida. Also joining us is Moya Dixon, as well as attorney Rodney Diggs. And so glad to have all of you on the show. So Corey, I need to start with you because what happened? Describe for us what took place when you're at home and all of a sudden cops burst in. Walk us through what happened. Corey?
Yes.
Yeah, so walk us through what happened on February 3rd.
It was approximately 4:45. I heard a big boom at my door. I got up real quick. My kids was in the bed with me. They was in the bed. I got up. I grabbed my firearm. It's registered in my name. I have my gun license. I grabbed my firearm and I was heading down the hallway. By the time I got midway in the hallway, I heard another big boom and my door swung open. It was pitch dark in the living room and outside. I don't have no porch light, so it was dark outside as well. So when the door swung open, I fired a warning shot at the door. Not seeing anyone out there, I just fired a shot. After a second after that, I heard them announce themselves saying that there was the police. I then lowered my firearm. I put it on the ground. I came outside with my hands up. I came all the way out the door, and I got on the ground, and that's when they put me in handcuffs.
Okay, so you said it was 4:45 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And why did they bust into your home?
They had a search warrant for electronics and clothing.
Okay, I'm sorry. So it's 4:45 in the morning, and they have a search warrant for electronics and clothing that they, allege was stolen?
That led to a shooting that happened.
Okay. So James, I want to pull you in here.
Yeah.
Did the cops allege that Corey was involved in the shooting?
No, we have no idea what the warrant was for. What we do know is that Mr. Marino was not subject to an arrest warrant. We don't really have much knowledge specifically as it relates to why they were there to retrieve items. Mr. Marino was renting the home, so he does not own that home. And so that's why it came as much of a surprise to him with someone bursting into his actual home at 4:45 a.m. And specifically, not there to arrest anybody, but to gather, any sort of electronics or other items.
Okay, I'm forgive me for being slightly confused. So they weren't executing an arrest warrant for murder.
No, they were not.
They weren't executing a warrant for domestic violence, aggravated assault. They weren't. So the warrant was to retrieve some stolen electronics and clothing.
We don't know if it was stolen electronics. It was just certain items that they were looking for. And the Pensacola police, following, this entry into the home, has been clear that they were not there to arrest Mr. Marino under any circumstance.
Okay, hold on. So Corey, how many cops are we talking about?
I can't even, it was so many, I can't even name how many off the top of my head.
5, 6, 10, 15?
20, 25.
Whoa, hold up. 25 cops are on the scene at the home at 4:45 in the morning to retrieve some electronics and clothes.
Yes, sir. It was the SWAT team and PPD.
Okay, we've got 3 attorneys there, Rodney Diggs, Reginald Reeves, and James Bryant. Have y'all ever heard of 25 cops busting through somebody's house, I'm assuming with a no-knock warrant, at 4:45 in the morning for some electronics and clothes?
I have not, and that's the problem. In this instance, it is just such an odd time to come at that time in the morning to retrieve items. I could see if, my client was, Pablo Escobar, and they were looking to get him to arrest him for some sort of murder. But it was absolutely mind-boggling what happened. And it wasn't a no-knock warrant. It was a warrant in which they came, they knocked for maybe 10 seconds, and then they burst in. This was against their policy. Pensacola PD has a very clear policy. You cannot enter into a person's house until you knock and announce after 15 seconds. And in this instance, they did 10 seconds. And it was at 4:45 in the morning. So what that tells me is they had no interest in alerting Mr. Marino that they were intending to break into his home.
For some clothes and electronics. Okay.
Correct.
I'm still trying to understand here, and if anybody is 5 of y'all, maybe y'all can really explain this to me. So there was a robbery. At any point, have they alleged that Corey was involved in this alleged robbery?
To the best of our knowledge, no. And furthermore, Mr. Marino can tell you, this is a man who has no criminal history. He worked for Navy Federal Credit Union in the fraud department. So that requires a very strict background check for him. He had his 2 children in the home, and they were aware of that. And they still decided to do what they did that early morning. Okay. And it's beyond me.
Has anybody explained how they arrived at his house?
No, there's an investigation going on in general as it relates to how this entire situation unfolded. As you know, during this entire ordeal, Mr. Marino's young child, Kylan, was injured by the police while he was in their custody. And so currently, right now, it's my understanding that Pensacola PD is involved in some sort of internal investigation.
Okay,
but sir,
were any clothes and electronics removed from the house?
Only electronics. No clothes were removed, and Mr. Marino is a registered firearm owner, so they took a few bullets, and they took his firearm that he had used.
Corey, first of all, Moya, first of all, we're thankful that we can actually talk to you, Corey, because this is very similar to what happened to Amir Locke in Minneapolis. And he's dead. And this is part of the thing that is so that a lot of black folks fear, even those who have gun permits, in that you can have that for your protection and still end up being killed by cops. And to listen to this and then to hear what happened to your child is incredible. Have they given any explanation on what happened to your 1-year-old? Because, look, I've got 13 nieces and nephews. If I walk over to a car and I see one of my nieces or nephew leaning up against the window, the last thing I'm going to do is open the doggone door to cause them to fall out and hurt themselves.
Absolutely not. And I think Moya can really sort of explain, what she's heard from them and what she actually heard from her 3-year-old son, Kaon, who witnessed his little brother being injured.
I was told by 3 officers at one time that he leaned on the door and opened it himself. Someone opened the door and he fell out, and that he was handed off and was dropped when he was handed off to a family member. My son told me that him and his brother were in the car with an officer. The officer was holding his brother and opened the door and dropped his brother onto his face.
Has anybody gotten an apology or an explanation from the cops? Were those police officers wearing body camera footage so we can actually see what transpired there?
So from our understanding, some of the SWAT team, they don't have body cam. We haven't been able to identify whether or not the officer who was holding Kylan has body cam. But let me explain something else. After Kylan had suffered these serious injuries to his head, and mind you, he's 1, the officers did have EMS come out, and they decided to send EMS home instead of taking a baby with those serious injuries to the hospital. And when Ms. Dixon arrived, she demanded to know what happened. They at first tried to say, oh, maybe he had a bump and bruise or whatever. His face was covered in blood, and she could not recognize him. And when she said, I need to take my son to the emergency room, the officers attempted to discourage her from taking him to the hospital. Now, mind you, it's a 1-year-old child who just suffered a serious head injury by hitting his head on the concrete. And we all know the dangers when a child hits their head that young. He could have gone to sleep and passed away that night if somebody didn't take a look at him. And that's how serious it is. She did receive an apology from the chief of police, but she never received an apology from these officers. And they completely told her multiple stories that don't add up. And the idea that she was encouraged not to take her child to the hospital, and that Pensacola PD specifically canceled EMS from taking him to the emergency room is absolutely neglectful. It seems as if something was intentional, and we're going to get to the bottom of it.
All right, so here's a statement that the police actually issued, and I want to read this statement right here. Go ahead and pull it up, please. The statement reads, after the search warrant was served, 2 children who were inside the residence were in the back seat of a car with a PPD investigator while they were waiting on family members to arrive to pick them up. A large vehicle approached that approach that needed assistance navigating through the vehicles that were in the road. The investigator got out of the back seat to assist the driver. One of the children was leaning on the door of the car when the investigator opened it to get back in and fell out of the car. The investigator wasn't aware that the child was leaning on the door. The child was checked by EMS for injuries. Both children were later released to family members. Let's deal with this attempted murder charge. What the hell is that?
It's absolutely mind-boggling. As you know, Florida has a stand your ground, castle doctrine rule. In this instance, Mr. Marino absolutely falls within the exception of standing his ground and protecting his home. He had no idea who was bursting into his home that night, and you have every right to use deadly force in order to prevent an invasion into your home. When it comes to law enforcement, if Mr. Marino does not know that they are law enforcement, he has the right to use deadly force. Furthermore, law enforcement, if they do not follow proper police policy, they also cannot say that the stand your ground or the castle doctrine doesn't apply. In this instance, in the Pensacola Police's own arrest report, they said they waited 10 seconds after they knocked before entering into the home. We know that the policy itself says you have to wait a minimum of 15 seconds. That is a major, major difference when you're talking about seconds in a situation like this. And it really could have been the difference between Mr. Marino being safe, the children being safe, and what we have right now, where we have a young man who has a family that he's been taken care of, and now he is facing the possibility of somebody attempting to take his freedom away. And we will fight that every step of the way.
It is wild. I'm going to bring in my panel here. I know they have questions. But this is the thing that we constantly talk about. Philando Castile has a permit for a gun. Tells the cop, I got a permit. He ends up dead. Amir Locke had a permit for his gun. Cops bust in. Of course, they don't even show. He doesn't even point at anyone. He ends up dead. And same thing. The young man who was with Breonna Taylor, who fired. They charged him with attempted murder, and charges were later dropped. I'm just trying to understand. A black man in his house, and folks bust in at 4:45 in the morning, can't protect himself, and he gets charged with attempted murder?
You know, Roland, what this is saying is that the Second Amendment doesn't apply to black people. The Second Amendment doesn't apply to black men. We talk about the right to bear arms. This man had every reason to want to protect his 1-year-old and his 3-year-old at 4:45 in the morning. And he did, and he exercised his right. But when a black man exercises his right, he's murdered. Or in the event that he's not murdered, he's charged with attempted murder. And it is absolutely, like I said, it is mind-boggling. And again, that's why we are calling for the Florida State Attorney not to press charges against not to bring charges against Mr. Marino.
And I'm quite sure you haven't heard Jack from the NRA. Let's go to my panel. I'm going to start with Larry. He's there in Florida. Larry, go ahead. Any questions?
Yeah, first of all, I'm glad that, he didn't end up, police didn't engage him in the kind of way that we would be having a different conversation. Let me say that, first of all, particularly as a father, right? And it's obviously someone who lives in the state. I think my question to you is in general, and probably to your attorney, how do you see this playing out? Because like Roland described some other situations where black males in particular were killed, and Breonna Taylor's a situation, a sister. But we keep seeing this repeating over and over and over again. So into your attorneys, how do you think this is going to play out with the state attorney general here in the state of Florida?
Here's what I'm hoping. I think there's enough information out there for the state attorney to make a decision that in this instance, it does not make sense to bring charges against Mr. Marino. Here, clearly, the Pensacola PD did not follow policy before entering into his home. Secondly, why would you come to effectuate a warrant for documents and things at 4:45 in the morning? Why couldn't you wait until 7 o'clock? Mr. Marino would have gladly let him in. So what I am asking for the state attorney to do is the right thing, which is to say, you know what, in this instance, we've got to protect the rights of the homeowners. Yes, we want officers to be safe, but given these very specific facts, nothing substantiates a reason to pursue charges. So I'm hoping that is the case. However, you never know what's going to happen when it comes to a decision by a state attorney. So if in fact they do decide to pursue charges, we will have to put up the defense necessary to ensure this man's freedom. And as it relates to the children, they are absolutely devastating. We still don't know what injuries Kylan has suffered. I tell you that he has suffered injuries that he was walking prior to this incident. He's no longer walking, and he's won. He has significant emotional mood swings, and that's very indicative of a potential injury to the frontal lobe. And then you have his brother, Kayon, who is frightened every single day. And it is heartbreaking. But what we want is accountability. And I think that if all parties use their heads, they'll work with us to resolve the issue as it relates to the injuries that happened to the children and to not pursue charges against Mr. Marino. It's the right thing to do.
Reese.
My question was actually going to be about the children. Ms. Dixon and Mr. Marino, what you have experienced with your children is just unconscionable. And Mr. Marino, the treatment you've experienced is appalling and abhorrent. My question is, what are the political levers that we can use? Because we know these are political decisions. This is an election year that we can exert to reverse this decision and make it untenable for them to continue with these baseless charges.
We need the Pensacola community, and they came out today. We need the Pensacola community to band together. We need law enforcement to accept the fact that, you know what, this probably wasn't the best way we could have handled this situation. And most certainly the injuries to the children are unacceptable. Coming together and saying, you know what, we apologize and we'd like to work this out. But we need community leaders. We need just the citizens of Pensacola to start saying in writing to their city council members, to the mayor, this isn't right. And we stand by Corey, and we stand for justice. We stand by Kylan, we stand by Kayon, and we stand by Moya. And that's really the way we pull those political levers. And again, my team will be speaking along with Lieutenant Timothy May, who is their pastor, who's been very vocal with this. So we're hoping that we're speaking to the community leaders, the state attorney, as well as the chief of police to resolve this. But it also helps to have the community support them. And they most certainly came out en masse today.
Greg.
Thank you, Roland. And I'll keep this brief. I'm really trying hard to restrain myself from calling these Patarollas devils, saying they are from the depths of hell. So I won't say that. Listening and reviewing, first of all, your composure is remarkable. Let me say that to both of y'all, seriously. And thank you for that. And I realize, Counselor, that that's a major point in this. Reading about this case sent me to the UN's definition of torture. And while this isn't quite torture, it is cruel, inhumane, and degrading punishment or treatment, and that doesn't require intent. My question, I think, is in line with Reese's, and you answered Reese's question, which leads me to a different question. How can we internationalize this so that it isn't just the citizens of Pensacola? Because, enough is enough. You've attacked a baby. At this point, we need to rain fire on them. And so, I know this is part of his Congressional Black Caucus, the NAACP, the churches, denominations. What can we do to make these Patarollas famous? Because they did drop the charges against, as you mentioned, Kenneth Walker and Breonna Taylor's case, and I expect they're going to use it. Are they trying to use it for leverage, whatever? But the more this spotlight shines on them, let us burn them with fire with this spotlight. Is that part of your strategy as you move forward?
Absolutely. That is why we're here. I mean, they retained us because we do not have any fear of anyone or anything when it comes to fighting for the constitutional rights of people around this country, specifically this Black family, and specifically the challenges that Black people have faced where their civil rights are completely being trampled. And what I'm also going to say is this: we will bring hell. And the reason why that is because no-knock warrants, knock and wait for 2 seconds to say I complied and busting in people's homes It's unacceptable.
That's right.
Disregarding a black man's right to his Second Amendment, knowing that, and they knew he was a registered firearm, disregarding that and charging every black man for wanting to defend themselves, that has to end. And yes, we will talk to the CBC, and I need the president to continue to do what he promised. He promised to make change about these things. And we've already had a series of unnecessary deaths. And quite frankly, it is driving me nuts that we are not doing more, that we're not seeing more movement. We saw the George Floyd bill die. It is time for all of us around this country to once again band together to put an end to no-knock warrants, to put an end to knock and entry where you do not give that person enough time to even know what's going on. It's unacceptable, and we have to start fighting these things, and we have to hold people accountable. And people who hurt babies must be fired, period.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It makes no sense whatsoever at all. First of all, Corey, how are you doing personally, emotionally? Because it's a whole lot to deal with when we talk about these stories like this.
Honestly, I'm not doing too good. I'm not sleeping at night. I'm up. My anxiety, I never had anxiety before, but lately I've been having real bad anxiety. I wake up to loud noises. If I hear any loud noises, I hyperventilate. It's really been tough on me. And then to see my kid the way he was is really been hard.
And also economically, you lost your job.
Yeah. So I'm without a job.
Well, how'd you lose your job?
The next day, they fired me saying due to the circumstances.
What? The Navy Federal Credit Union fired this young man, someone who had passed all of their rigorous background checks, because of the circumstances. He hasn't even technically been charged with the crime yet. And now he is unemployed, and he's struggling to be a father to pay for things for his family and still be a father to provide them emotional support. It's devastating.
Unbelievable. Folks, we appreciate you providing us this exclusive. Please keep us abreast of what happens in this case so we can update our audience.
Thank you so much, Roland.
Thank you.
All right. Folks, again, this story right here is why black media matters. It's because when we have the ability to tell our own story, to share these stories, and give it the time necessary as well. Again, a lot of attention, Greg, is on the Amir Locke case. But when you talk about this here, again.
Thanks so much.
And we talk about NRA, where y'all at? Y'all love talking about Second Amendment. But it's amazing, every time we have one of these stories where a black person has a gun and a permit, boy, the NRA is quiet as hell. Dana Lash, Grant Stinchfield, all y'all talk with the NRA. What's the Colin Noir, whatever the hell his name is. Where y'all at?
Yeah. Well, Roland, I mean, as we know, their counselor said it perfectly at the beginning. The Second Amendment doesn't apply to black people. When the Panthers busted up in the state legislature in Sacramento with those guns, they changed the gun laws in California. In other words, no, y'all can't be doing that. And let me just say parenthetically that I was impressed with not only their composure, but with how their counselor presented himself. Folk got money in Navy Federal Credit Union, maybe want to consider withdrawing it. And in fact, if that's Navy Federal Credit Union, seems to me that perhaps the Secretary of the Navy needs to send a message down. I mean, this is where elected officials can get involved. This man gonna lose his job behind that. Is there some collusion between the paddle rollers and the damn Federal Credit Union down there? But in short, if the Castle Doctrine and Stand Your Ground law is anything other than a weapon to use to hunt black people, that lawyer's gonna find out. And if indeed these charges hold against the brother, and in fact we see an outcome we don't like, then they've taken one more step toward lawlessness in this country. I can't say that I'm necessarily sad about that, But as we've all said, they dropped a baby. That boy brother said what happened, and then they're gonna tell a straight lie about it. There's no reforming that. I like the way that lawyer talked. It's time to go to war with these people, straight up. And I think that type of intellectual warfare has to be pursued. That's different than a gun. I'm not talking about a gun. I'm talking about the best minds we have and flood the damn place. That man lost his job on top of this. They trying to punish him.
Again, this is what we talk about, Larry, about being black in America. I mean, it's 4:45 in the morning. If you got a gun and all of a sudden folks bust through your house, the first thing you're going to do is grab your weapon. And now he's facing attempted murder charges? And for some damn clothes and electronics? 25 cops?
Yeah, I got to tell you, Roland, I'm thinking of Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? We keep going in circles about it. We keep seeing these same challenges every single year. And, I'm thinking about his trauma and then, the trauma of both children, and not only the actual emotional trauma, but the 1-year-old. And, I'm certainly wondering if you get an MRI, to find out what is some of the possible long-term damage, right? And as a parent, you feel for him and you can see it in his face. I mean, this is a traumatic experience, but this kind of violence and trauma is consistent with the challenges that Black people in this country have dealt with for, since in 1619. Also want to add, this kind of heard there because the attorney talked about the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, right? So once again, here we are back again, from the very beginning of once again of another traumatic experience that these children have been traumatized, possibly the rest of their life. And when obviously their father, the mother, and family members and members of the community are traumatized. And like I said, sick and tired of being sick and tired. And we have to really, like I said, hold these members of law enforcement responsible. Jumping a 1-year-old is not acceptable, and certainly not kicking in somebody's door in the middle of the night. And then, like I said, in the state of Florida, he has the right to protect his family. But once again, it's uneven in terms of how we get treatment throughout United States history. So I'm not surprised.
Absolutely difficult to be Black in this country, Reese.
I'm enraged on every level of being enraged. First of all, let me say that these cops are lying their motherfucking asses off, because you do not bring 20 officers for no damn clothes and a computer. So whatever they really were trying to get at, it sounds like a case of damn mistaken identity, and they're trying to cover their ass with this bullshit charge. That's number one. Number two, we're talking about children, Black children. I know that these cops believe no human involved, but we're talking about children. A 1-year-old traumatized psychologically, physically, makes me motherfucking ill and irate. And I can't talk about it in academic, calm terms because it's infuriating. This is terrorism against a family, and it's adding insult to injury on top of injury on top of injury on top of lifelong injury. Hopefully not. But this is going to reshape the childhood of these 2 young Black boys who are the children of law-abiding citizens. And guess what? Even if he was guilty of a crime, who gives a fuck? That does not mean you get to drop a child on their face and shrug it off and try to dissuade them from getting medical attention or try to lie about it. That does not give them the right to do that. So as Dr. Carr says, there's no we. This is where we as Black people or people of conscience have to test that and wrap our arms around him. I want to know, what is his Cash App? Does he have a GoFundMe?
Actually, they do. I just got a text message about their GoFundMe. I'm waiting for them to send it to me, and so when we're gonna give that, so folks, we're gonna pull that up after this break. We're gonna pull it up. We're gonna show folks what that.
Can I just finish one more thing I want to say? When these white boys get out there, when they Klan killing these paddle rollers, these slave patrol motherfuckers get out there killing people, they become millionaires. They become a cause. They ain't got to worry about shit for the rest of their life, let alone a conviction. They ain't got to worry about nothing. Kyle Rittenhouse out there chilling at the bar. And yet we have, when Black people are being terrorized by the system and they're being cruel and unusual punishment, it's just another story of Black people being mistreated. This is a story where we should all get behind really wrapping our arms around this family and doing something about it. He should not be unemployed with the skills that he has in a virtual world where people can work remote. If you have a business that you can use his kind of help with, if you are a psychiatrist who can offer services, this is where we have to start being that community that we claim to be when we're looking for reparations and we're looking for everything else. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we have to be more of a community and wrapping our arms around people like Mr. Moreno and Miss Dixon and these two babies. These two babies. We got to do better by them. If nobody else will do it, we got to do it.
Folks, you have the GoFundMe ready? Okay, come on. Folks, this is, again, I keep telling y'all this here. This right here, why we don't do gossip, why we don't do mess. There are real stories that black people are being impacted by every single day that we cover and we tell these stories. This is the GoFundMe page right here. Support baby Silent, Kayan, Moya, and Corey. Their goal is to raise $25,000. It was created 1 day ago. They've already raised $935. And so, folks, we want y'all to support them. Please pass this GoFundMe around as well. Share it. Spread it. To Reese's point, when that thug Kyle Rittenhouse did what he did, they raised $2 million. All those folks, Ricky Schroeder was out there supporting him, helping him with his legal bills. And so we want to be sure to support them as well. And so that's why. And also, and let me also thank them for reaching out to black-owned media to tell this story with this exclusive. That's important as well, which is why we do what we do. And so before I go to a break, and yes, I'm going to take your phone calls. Before I go to a break, I do want to go to Minneapolis. Georgia Fort now joins us to give us an update and the breakdown of what happened in the courtroom today when those 3 former cops were found guilty for doing nothing to save the life of George Floyd. So, Georgia, walk us through what happened in court today.
Well, we received an alert from the federal courthouse that the verdict was in this afternoon. We had about 15 minutes to get there before they announced it. And so when the judge opened up the courtroom, he announced that all 3 officers were found guilty on all charges. When Tutau, Thomas Lane, and Alexander King walked in, they had almost this arrogance and confidence that they were going to be found not guilty because it wasn't their knee that was on George Floyd's neck. But after the guilty came in on 2 of the 3 defendants, you started to see a change in atmosphere, even tears coming down the defendants' eyes. Lane specifically, we heard a lot of people thinking he was going to get off, but also thinking that the jury was going to be sympathetic for Officer Lane because his pregnant wife came to court every single day. But that's not the case. And so now that all 3 officers have been found guilty of not intervening, they've been found guilty of violating George Floyd's civil rights, the question that was asked to Floyd's brother and nephew is if they've talked to Attorney General Keith Ellison to find out whether or not the state trial is still necessary. They said that's a conversation that has not yet taken place and will soon be determined. But what we did hear from the Floyd family, Floyd's brother made a statement along with the U.S. Attorney's Office following the announcement of the verdict. And his brother, Floyd's brother, pointed to the many other injustices that have happened in Minneapolis. I know you've heard of Dante Wright, you've heard of Amir Locke, and he pointed to the fact that Kimberly Potter smiled in her mugshot and was only sentenced to 2 years with probably 16 months to serve. And the jury's still out on whether or not the officer who fatally shot Amir Locke will be held accountable. At this point, it's been 3 weeks since Locke was fatally shot. We have not heard from Mayor Fry. We have not heard from the interim police chief, Amelia Huffman. We haven't heard from the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. We haven't heard from Keith Ellison. No one is talking about whether or not Locke will be fatally shot. And so while obviously the 3 officers who were found guilty today, obviously that's a total different case. The way that Floyd's brother tied all of these events together, he said every time he comes to Minneapolis, it's not for anything good. And while he was here for the Chauvin trial, Dante Wright was fatally shot. And then while he was here for this trial, Amir Locke was shot. And so they're also hesitant about coming back if there is a state trial for the other 3 officers, because the record that we have here, I mean, by then we might have another police killing. And so the community continues to protest. The community was even gathered today. Black men in the community, dozens of Black men, Grammy Award winning artists from Mint Condition spoke out. We heard from doctors. We heard from individuals who work at colleges, all different professions. We heard from pastors who spoke out today demanding that the mayor, demanding that the interim police chief intervene, that attorney Keith Ellison make a determination on the case, and that they release, in the case of Amir Locke, and that they release the rest of the footage. So in Minneapolis, although some would say that this is a step forward and it's a small victory, when you think of the bigger picture here, there's still a very long way to go.
All right, Georgia Fort, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Got to go to a break. We come back. We're going to talk to an official from Texas about that effort to get rid of tenure because Dan Patrick's hurt feelings. Also, we'll take your phone calls, folks. Call this number, please. If you want to weigh in about any of the stories we talked about, that exclusive story we just shared with you, as well as, of course, the other news, 202-890-1199, 202-890-1199. Got lots of folks holding. We're going to give you 30 seconds for each one of those callers, and so we're going to make that happen. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
I'm Dr. Greg Carr, inviting you to take your seat at the Black Table, and we'll be discussing the past, present, and future of Black History Month.
But we need to understand what the principal ask is of African people to understand themselves.
Take your seat and join the conversation, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black
black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hey, I'm Cupid, the maker of the Cupid Shuffle and the Wham Dance.
What's going on? This is Tobias Trevelyan. And if you're ready, you are listening to and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're pulling up the next guest, talk about that story out of Texas when it came to this whole battle with tenure. I want to go to the phone lines and get all of you out here talking about what's going on. Let's go to Porto McMillan. Porto, you on Roland Martin Unfiltered. What's your comment? Porto? You there? Porto. Porto, can you hear me? You there? Okay, let me put Porto on hold, please. Is Bernice Parrish there? Bernice, can you hear me? Bernice, can you hear me? Bernice, you there? Bernice, can you hear me? Y'all want to tell me what's going on in the control room? Bernice, can you hear me? Bernice, guess not. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to, first of all, I need y'all to figure out what's going on, okay? Way too many problems in the control room today, all right? So we got lots of people who are on the phone lines. Let's get it together, all right? We're going to go back to talk about this story out of Texas when it comes to the issue with tenure. And we're seeing all of these different stories. We're seeing these things happen all across the country. And what it's speaking to, as I said earlier, is what happens when you have, frankly, flat out crazy folks who are in power in this country. And so in a moment, we're going to talk with a woman. She's actually running for lieutenant governor in the state against, hopefully to run against Dan Patrick. She's also a professor of sociology at the Texas Southern University, Carla Bailey. And so, all right, Carla, you there?
Yes.
All right, so Carla, so we were talking earlier about this thing that Dan Patrick is doing, and frankly, it just makes no sense whatsoever. But it shows you how Republicans in Texas want to stifle freedom voices. They want to stifle people who disagree with them. This is about absolute control, and because they oversee Texas state universities, they want to impose their will on these universities.
Absolutely. I mean, what we're seeing is not only an attack on a system, tenure system that has been meant to ensure that professors have academic freedom across the board, but I think what we see that if this actually goes forth in the state of Texas, we also know what kind of impact this can have on historically Black colleges and universities. And so when I entered even this race, I had no idea that my very job would be on the line as a professor who actually really focuses on social inequality and studies relating to social justice, which is a direct challenge that this current leadership is attempting to do.
And for them to literally threaten to end tenure is unbelievable. I mean, isn't the whole point of tenure academic freedom?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anyone would have saw this coming. I know that what we're seeing in Texas is really this anti-democratic movement, and we're seeing that, it's less than 20% of Texans who've really embraced this. So what we're seeing that even I think if we were to have some conversations with some Republicans, they would be against this, and that's what we're seeing. And if they can do this in Texas, God knows where else they can do it.
Absolutely. And so it is ongoing. But first of all, Dan Patrick has been absolutely unbelievably awful for Texas. This is the same person who said that older Texans should frankly die so kids won't have to take vaccine mandates. And I'm sitting there going, why don't you volunteer yourself then, if that's the case? And again, that's the kind of thing that we're seeing happen there in Texas. How are professors responding to this threat?
Oh, I actually think that Dan may have targeted the wrong population. I mean, you shouldn't target any population, but I think this very system crosses race, class, gender. It crosses, even occupation, because at the end of the day, these professors, and I'm a professor as well, is actually educating students who go out and become our next leaders of various industries. So this is not something that professors and educators are taking lightly. And I think in the weeks to come, you're going to see much more pushback than we're already seeing.
All right, then, Carla, we certainly appreciate it. The primary, folks are going to the polls right now. You've had lots of cold weather there in Texas impacting the polls there. So, folks, be sure to vote on Tuesday in the Texas primary there. So, Carla, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for your work.
All right, folks, so we're going to do this here. Let me do this here. Y'all pull the GoFundMe page up, please. I told you this a few moments ago. I gave you the GoFundMe. I just want to show y'all how our viewers respond. No, y'all got to refresh that. Y'all got to refresh that. That was $935 we told y'all. That number, hit refresh, please. That number now is $5,000. And so in less than 10 minutes, our fan base, Gabe, can y'all please hit refresh? Okay, in less than 10 minutes, our fan base has given almost 20%, what we've given. So it's about $5,100. And so it was $935 when we started. The number's gone up to more than 5,000. And so we're going to show it again, folks, by the end of the show, what we have given. All right, let's go to a quick break. We come back. We're going to take your phone calls right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go to the phone lines. Lines are open. Porto, you there?
Hey, Roland.
Yep, what's your comment?
I'd like to say thank you for what you're doing. I'm a big fan of yours. My grandmother's a big fan. We're both watching right now. She's been watching you for years on TV One. And I just wanted to comment about the story with the family from Pensacola. My heart goes out about them, and it's saddening. I plan to donate to the GoFundMe page after the show is over. And last thing I was going to say, Roland, I'm a voter. I'm a young voter. I'm in college right now, and I wanted to just thank you again for what you're doing, and keep watching, enjoying the show.
Well, Porter, I certainly appreciate that, man. Thank you so very much. Let's go to our next caller. I need to pull the screen up here, folks. Go to the next caller.
Got it in. All right.
All right, you're on the air.
Yep.
You're on the air. All right, can they?
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Dr. Martin. How are you?
Doing great.
This is Miss Parrish. I'm a senior citizen, and I've been watching you since you was on the other television. I'm a senior citizen, and I have a couple of things, Mr. Martin. Thank you first.
What's your comment?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. What's your comment? So do this here. I need you to turn your TV down because there's a delay. So just simply listen to me. Turn your TV down, and so go ahead with your comment.
Okay. First, thank you for all you do and your people you have on. I'm thinking about James Baldwin when he says, we're the only people in America that didn't ask to come here. And on top of that, how can we talk about justice when the judicial system was built on corruption?
Okay. Great point. Great point. You're absolutely right. And again, this is, as some say, an experiment. Some would call it a failed experiment. And so, is that it? Any other comment?
Yes, and then we talked about how they control us, and they're still doing it. The gun, the whip, and the Bible.
Mm-hmm. All right. Great point. Great point.
Thank you again.
I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Hello?
Yep, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Uncle Roland, my name's Lewis. I just wanted to give my comments, my 2 cents on the Russia-Ukraine situation. I'm just going to say this. Malcolm X warned us. If everybody thinks this has nothing to do with black people, you think those higher gas prices at the pump are going to hurt? We're in for a world of trouble. We're not fucking ready. To quote Reese.
You quote Malcolm X and you quote Reese.
Yes.
If there's cussing involved, that means you quote Reese. Got it. All right, then.
Thank you very much.
Lewis, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. See, look, Reese, you got folk calling in cussing.
Hey, it's unfiltered.
Oh man, let's go to North Jersey. Allison Kinsey. Allison, you're on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. What's your comment?
Hi, Uncle Ro. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Well, I gotta say that I enjoy your show, and my money come out every year for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And Brother Carr, please don't put any more books up because I seem to buy every one you put up.
Oh no!
But if you do that, buy it through a black bookstore.
Right.
I do. And Reese, my niece looks just like you. But I told her if she cuss like you, we're gonna have a fight.
Oh.
Now,
hey, I can't. I can cuss. I don't know about her.
What I wanted to say was, when I was in high school, I had a Jewish teacher. You know, everybody had their issues with her, but the one thing that she did show us in a predominantly black school, which is now predominantly Hispanic, she showed us a movie about a white rabbit and the black rabbit. She showed how the law applies to the white rabbit and how the law applies to the black rabbit. She was letting us know that even though the law says this, between the lines, it means something else for us, meaning to protect ourselves and don't basically say what my mom said. You can't do what other people do and walk upright because you weren't made to walk upright when they brought you here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
So I really enjoy you.
Allison, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Chandra Woodley from New York. Hey, Chandra.
Yes, good evening, Roland, and distinguished guests. I love you all. You cannot teach or learn empathy. You either have it or you don't. And I will explain why I care about what's going on in Ukraine. 30 years ago, Ukraine was the third largest nuclear power in the world. They gave up their nuclear weapons in a nuclear proliferation treaty, and Russia signed on to that. Malcolm X got in trouble when he said about chickens coming home to roost. Muammar Gaddafi was asked to give up his nuclear weapons, and he gave them up, and the Obama administration said, we took him out. Imagine a world where Mexico could decide one day that they're going to come up in the United States, take back the states of Arizona, California, Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada, and Texas, because that was once their territory. Empathy would tell us that you could use that analogy for the Ukraine. I agree wholeheartedly with everything that Dr. Carr says. America has been waging hegemony around the world for years. But I fear that the next hegemonic war will be fought right here in the United States against us. And I thank you for everything that you do.
I appreciate
Good
it.
night, all.
Chandra, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. You know, Larry, Reese, and Greg, this is really important. I love the point that she made about Ukraine and then tying to Libya. This is why Pakistan, this is why India said, no, we ain't good about nuclear weapons. This is why North Korea playing the games that they play, because they understand you having a nuclear weapon means you're going to back the hell off of trying to come after us. That is the reality. Now, folks say, hey, I hate nuclear weapons. It's only one country that has actually used a nuclear bomb against another country. And the reality is we have seen this. This is why Saddam Hussein, this is why other countries, this is why you've never had Israel officially state that they have a nuclear bomb, even though we know they do. And that's the deal, because it is served as a deterrent from other superpowers trying to come into your country. That's just a fact.
That's right. That's right, Roland. In fact, you know, our society in the United States has a memory of a fruit fly. Even as Saddam Hussein was trying to negotiate with the U.S. government to prevent invasion, because remember, they had a beef with Kuwait. The United States had already determined they were going to go into Iraq. It was nothing they can do. The UN tried to negotiate. You had people try. No, hell no. They're going to invade. And they used the pretext of protecting the Kuwaitis. That sister really did lay it out. South Africa, if you remember, was forced to give up the nuclear weapons. Why? Because it was going to be a black-controlled government had those nuclear weapons. And what she has said, again, I mean, and we know, and we're looking at our brother, and you've had him on this show now. I'm sure he's swamped with interviews everywhere. I've been trying to follow Jarrell Starr a little bit, and he's in Ukraine right now. I think he's in Kiev. And of course, we know who suffers in war: the people. It ain't the politicians, it's the people. And so, I'm really thinking about the regular folk in places like Taiwan and other places, because trust us, China got the bomb. And China is looking to see how this is going to play out. This can't be won with force. I don't know that it can be won with diplomacy. Some of this we may just have to eat, because at the end of the day, if you got the bomb and they got the bomb. As Curtis Mayfield said, if there's hell below, we all gonna go, and we along for the ride at this point. Something's got to give, and I think we should all be very concerned about the situation we're in right now.
I agree, absolutely. The next call, I think, has a question for you, Greg. Devin Young. Devin, you're on Roland Martin Unfiltered. What's your question?
Hey, how y'all doing? Appreciate everything you're doing, Roland. Reese, you look so much like my beautiful sister. So apparently on this call, you're hearing from your kin, I guess.
Does your sister cuss like Reese?
From time to time. Her name is Erica. So special affection for this panel. This question is for anyone, but I have a feeling Dr. Carr will want it. It relates to Black History Month and the trials happening now. Carter G. Woodson in Miseducation of the Negro says the trial by jury originated in Africa or from Africans. How can I verify that, and what sources can I find to learn more about that? Because all I see online is England and Greece.
Okay, very quickly, brother. Thank you for the question. The concept of the jury as we have it today comes out of the Western traditions, the English common law. But if you're talking about a kind of tribunal to judge between two disputants, where a lawyer is representing one side, you can find that in the ancient Egyptians. In fact, if you look at the dispute between, the Greeks would call him Thoth, T-H-O-T-H. The dispute between Horus and his uncle Set. They fought each other over control of the Nile Valley, and Horus was represented by Thoth, T-H-O-T-H, and the jury were the Netjeru, who represented each of the states, for lack of a better term, in ancient Egypt. Their first trial is Egyptian. Look up the Battle of Horus and Set, and from there, look up the trial. I believe it was the Ennead, which is the 9, who judged. But that was the jury trial, brother. And that's about as old as it gets in human history.
All right. Devin, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much. I'm going to do calls for 3 more minutes. Let me quickly go to Russell. Russell, you're on Roland Martin Unfiltered. What's your comment?
Hello?
Yes, you're in the air.
Yes. Roland, I want to thank you guys for what you do every day. And this question is for the whole panel. Do you guys believe that Putin and Trump are in cahoots to establish this war to try and have a diversion because of the insurrection of January 6th?
No. I think what you have is clearly Putin was in cahoots with Donald Trump. Donald Trump did everything. In fact, when Donald Trump met with Putin, he met privately, had the translator destroy the notes of their meeting. Normally, when presidents meet with foreign leaders, they literally have a copy of what was said and it's placed with the National Security Advisor. Donald Trump had those destroyed. So clearly, you got something going on right there. And there's no doubt that Putin preferred to have Trump in the Oval Office. That's why Donald Trump ain't got no business even being near the Oval Office, because we can't trust a damn thing that he said or Putin as well. Okay?
I have one more question, Roland.
Okay. Go ahead.
Roland, I got one more question. I know you give a lot of advice to the Democratic committee. Do you ever try and, I guess, have them listening to your show, or somebody relay messages to them regarding your show?
Oh, trust me, they listen. Oh, they listen. And trust me, I hear from the White House, or I hear from the DNC. And what people understand is we make it perfectly clear that we're going to be honest with them on every single turn. So they know exactly where we stand on these issues. And they don't just hear from the show, they hear from me directly. Okay? All right. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so very much. Let me see here. Keith Darnell. Keith Darnell, you're on Roland Martin Unfiltered. What's your comment? Keith? Keith, you're there? Going once, going twice, Keith. All right. Next caller. Keith, you there? Keith? I'm going to drop you. Sorry, Keith. Robert James from Arizona. Robert, what's your comment? Robert, you're on the air.
Hi, Ro. Look at that pretty Reese. Look at you, girl, with your cousin self. And hi, Dr. Greg, and the handsome man in the bow tie. How you doing?
That's Larry. This is Larry's first time on the panel, so he getting hazed early on.
I love all of you. This is my favorite panel right here. Yeah. Y'all are it, but I like your show, Roland.
I appreciate it.
Y'all doing great work. Y'all doing God's work, so keep it up.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. What's your comment?
I'm just flabbergasted. I looked at that baby's nose, and I'm just trying to keep my spirits up because I'm just, and I'm glad I found the GoFundMe. So thank you for sharing that, Reese. And they're in my prayers. They're not going to get away with this. Those demons are not going to get away with this. You trust me.
Well, that's precisely why.
There's a law of reciprocity.
Well, you're absolutely right. That's one of the reasons why it's important for us to get these stories out so people are aware of what happens. And so it absolutely matters. We appreciate your phone call. Thanks a lot.
God bless y'all.
Thank you very much. I'm going to close this out this way. I'm going to go Larry, Reese, and then Greg. Again, I think back to a story. I think back. I was on a State of Black Media call today with Graham Media Group, and we were talking about content. We were talking about these things. What happens, how Black people see things differently from white people. And when I was at TV One, the first CEO we had at TV One was my man Jonathan Rodgers, our frat brother Greg. And when Jonathan retired, he was replaced by Wanya Lucas, and then she left, and then we hired Brad Siegel. And one day we were in Brad's office, and Brad was the first white president of TV One. And Brad asked me, well, the stories that you do on the show, I just think we're seeing the same thing every day. I said, what do you mean? He said, it's, every day it's these shootings and police brutality. I said, because that's the shit that's happening to Black people, Brad. And that's what we cover. And then if we don't cover it, then who will? And so he wanted me to do this thing where to sort of explain why we were doing certain stories. And I said, why would I do that? Well, for people who don't understand, I said, Black people understand it, Brad. You're not Black. I don't have to explain to Black people why we do stories on police brutality. And now mind y'all, I was the host, but also the managing editor, which I had final say-so on content. And I said, Brad, you know what? Just do me a favor. Why don't you focus on prime time? I said, why don't you focus on prime time and dealing with advertising, and why don't you leave the news content to me on News One Now? Now, I'm sure he was taken aback because he was the president of the network, but I ain't give a damn. Because I wasn't about to sit here and have to explain myself as to why I was doing these stories. I said, because Brad, Black folks are the ones getting shot by the cops and getting beat by the cops, and if we don't do these stories, well, who the hell will? So maybe when they stop shooting and killing Black folks, then it won't be my lead story. That right there, Larry, is why I keep trying to tell people why it matters for us not to be so and where we inundated with damn entertainment and sports and gossip and all this sort of stuff. If we do not have places where we are covering the real issues, then all we doing is hoping white media cover us and do it from our vantage point, and that just ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, you know, your platform is important. Like I said, as a black man, but also as an alpha man. But black folks have been
not another alpha in the house. Scott Bolden is throwing up somewhere.
Another alpha man. But you're right. You know, your platform is critically important because look at the panelists, right? You know, how often you look at cable news networks and see people look like us. But you're right. As a black man, I always tell my students that, you know, I'm a black man first, right? So when I get in my car, drive around, I have the same concerns that every other black man does in America. And as a father of a black male son, those stressors, anxiety from worried about his safety is something that's a part of our day-to-day lives. So listen, you know, Roland, like I said, you keep doing what you're doing. This is critically important. I appreciate the opportunity for the platform. And as someone, like I said, I was a black man, but as a researcher who writes about racism, black people are catching hell in this country. And we have to be able to offer some programming on TV that counters a lot of the nonsense you see on cable TV, because it will continue if these disinformation campaigns will continue if we don't have platforms like yours. So I applaud you, appreciate it, and this is always a wonderful opportunity.
Larry, I appreciate you joining us. First time on the panel. Great job. And of course, see, you didn't put the alpha part in your email when you asked to come on the show.
Yes, I did. You missed it.
You did? I must have missed that. I must have missed that part there.
You missed it.
I must have missed that one. Reese, again, first of all, y'all show me the latest. Give me the latest. And again, this is the power of black-owned media. When we started this, they had $935. We've almost hit 90, but first of all, we've actually exceeded that in that that's now multiplied, gone from $935 to $9,368. And the thing is, when you go on these other networks, they ain't gonna put that GoFundMe up. This is why our voices matter. Reese, go ahead.
Right. This is where that community is built. This is where we are the ones who are going to be the change that we want to see. We don't have to beg for coverage. We don't have to beg for scraps of representation and being talked about briefly in very narrow lenses. We have a broad array of concerns, of expertise, and people who can provide opinions that are not monolithic. And that's the importance of the Black Star Network, of the programming, in addition to Roland Martin Unfiltered and of Roland Martin Unfiltered, because this is really where you can get the facts. And this is where it's not about the cool kids club and who knows who and who gonna keep looking out for who. It's about the folks who have the knowledge and the folks who are going to give it to you real straight up, no chaser. And you ain't got to agree with everything that everybody has to say, but we don't have to continue looking and begging elsewhere to get the kind of representation that we get here every single night on Roland Martin Unfiltered. It ain't about what's going viral with Don Let Me Said or somebody else on the white-facing networks. We say that stuff every day. It ain't nothing new over here. So we have to value, and I've said that, it's been a while since I've said this, but we have to value our own shit. And we have to value the expertise in the words and the sentiment that comes from our own shit. And when we do that, then we'll get even more eyes and we'll get even more power and we'll get even more community and we'll get stronger together when we put the value on what we can produce like we do the other stuff.
And you know, Greg, I wasn't initially going to mention this, but I'm just going to go ahead real quick. You know, I had a little back and forth today with Jason Lee with Hollywood Unlocked. Because for 3 days, they've been reporting that Queen Elizabeth died. And I'm like, y'all the only ones in the world. So y'all got the scoop, and he's been doubling, tripling down. And so I had a few choice words on their Instagram page about it. And I said, let me be clear. I've taken the Shade Room, Black Enterprise, other folks to task when they have stuff didn't report properly. That was just wrong and black-owned media. So he decided to come at me, blasting me, call me a coon, the N-word. So I blocked him on Twitter. And I said, I don't let nobody call me that. And he's all upset, mad. And here's the deal. If y'all go look at the post on Instagram and Twitter where he's going off on me, all the folk underneath the comments are blasting him for shoddy reporting. So it actually backfired on him. Then a little bit earlier today, about 8 hours ago, he tweeted how he has the receipts on me losing advertisers. Well, 8 hours later, he ain't brought no receipts out. See, Jason needs to understand, I'm a grown-ass man. That gossip stuff don't work on me. He even said, oh, folk, don't nobody 90 and under, nobody under 90 know who you are. Really?
What?
But it's amazing how many folk responded. And see, the thing here is this here. I love to see new black-owned media outlets launched. But you still got to have credibility. You still got to have integrity. And so I'm about to tweet to Jason. Jason, y'all want to do something? Why don't you amplify the GoFundMe? Why don't you amplify the exclusive that we just had on that family? Since he actually said, I ain't broken no stories in a long time. Boy, my stuff is so long, you can't even catch up. But the thing I need people to understand is, if we do not have real journalists and covering real news, all we are going to be doing is gossiping about what Kanye did, his new album, and something else. I need people to understand the time has come for us to return to our roots of the North Star, of Ida B. Wells Barnett. That's why she's right there. That's why she's here, right there. We got to return to the writings of James Baldwin. We got to return to when Ebony had some of the most comprehensive coverage what issues of impacting Black America, what Jet was doing, Negro Digest. See, we ain't got time for games here, y'all. The other side ain't playing. If y'all want to see the top 10 sites on Facebook, nearly all conservative. They're literally banding together. Yesterday, Greg, I sent a note, made a comment to about 30 high-profile African Americans. Probably, if I added up all of their following, we would exceed 75 to 100 million. And I said, what if Black people did what conservative media did? And that is, to Reese's point, not just recirculate a clip of Don Lemon or a clip that's on MSNBC. I said, but what if Black folk with huge followings said, we're going to circulate 10 clips of Roland Martin Unfiltered every single week. And then we're going to circulate clips from this Black-owned media outlet, and then this one right here. I said, you know what would happen? The following would rise dramatically, which also raises the revenue of those companies.
That's right.
And a couple of people responded, oh man, you're right. But ain't nobody retweeted one thing. So a lot of people talk about the collective, but a lot of folk, Greg, ain't real about the collective. They're about them collecting a check themselves. Close us out.
You're right, Roland. I mean, you know, when I say there's no we, that includes the notion of the Black community. What held us together initially was our common oppression. And out of that common oppression, we built a community. But after the change in the laws in the United States, desegregation, you see increasing fractures in that solidarity. So that's where we get to where we are. But the beautiful thing about it, Roland, is, and everybody, you know, we work with Roland, we see how hard he works. When you work like that, you engender trust. It is trust that now has that GoFundMe approaching 10,000, and it'll probably overflow. So by the time the sun comes up on the East Coast of the United States of America, that family in Pensacola will be a little less stressed. That's because of trust. People don't just give money, hard-earned money, particularly Black folk. We don't crowdsource things because we don't have it like that. But if it's somebody we trust, we do that. And you don't build trust overnight. Ask people at BNC. You don't build trust overnight. And it's not whether they're good or bad people. At the end of the day, it is because people learn who they can rely on. You know, when you see Roland in Liberia, when you see Roland in Ghana, you know, Roland's come out of his pocket. Roland is pinching pennies. Roland is every dollar you give is immediately repurposed into the work. And so people will then say, well, I'll give $1.25 next time, $1.50 next time. And as it catches fire, that baby's face and that story of what happened to them in Pensacola, I suspect on this trajectory will become international news. And then you'll see Don Lemon looking very worried as he interviews the family. Then you see, how many times have we seen you break a story that a few weeks later, everybody is on it? That's because the Black people know we trust you first. And I'm going to end with this. This Ukraine thing, you know, as I'm listening, you know, tonight and we're having this conversation, one word keeps coming back. One word that Ida B. Wells used when she was writing about lynch law and all its phases: impunity. Impunity. Those cops kicked in that door with impunity. They did it because they can get away with it. We have to stop them. Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine because nobody stopped him in 2014 when he took Crimea. You know what it looks like? And people are starting to say this, but I'm going to end with this. As Gil Scott-Heron said in his famous poem song, ... did it ... dash, the ghetto code, damned if I know. He says it's looking like Hitler in 38. Did they move to stop Hitler before it was too late? In 1938, Adolf Hitler, head of the National Socialist Party in Germany, said that Germans had a right to self-determination, and any Germans living in Czechoslovakia, any Germans living in Hungary had the right to be self-determining. And you know who didn't stop Hitler when he sent his tanks into Czechoslovakia in 1938? The rest of Europe. They called it the Lightning War, the Blitzkrieg. That's what happens when you blitz a quarterback. It came from the Blitzkrieg, the Lightning War. And when they didn't stop Hitler in 38, you fast forward a couple of years. That's World War II. We are on the verge now. They didn't stop Putin in 2014. They're not going to stop him now. This is serious ass business. But whether it's Putin in Ukraine or these white boys in Pensacola, impunity. The time to stop a thing is right now. And when you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, when you're watching the Black Star Network, what you are watching is somebody who is willing to stand up and say, we can stop them. We can be a community. We will do it. And every time you say it, Roland, a few more people say, you right, you right. And a few more people say, you right, you right. And now we reach critical mass, and then we get another critical mass, and that's how we get free.
Folks, I want to show y'all what y'all did. When we started, we put that GoFundMe up. It was $935. Less than an hour. It's now $10,682. Y'all did that. Please share it and spread it. I'm going to close this way. One of the reasons why I ask y'all to support what we do, not just for this, and trust me, every dollar does count. And Greg said that we ain't got it like that. When I was in Liberia, the average person makes $1.50 a day. The drivers that they hired to take us around were paid $20 a day. We were responsible for overtime and tip. So when they calculated it, the two drivers, I handed them $800. There was a young brother, Alpha, Jeremiah, who was on our team. Jeremiah makes $100 a week teaching kids how to play soccer. He played soccer at Dallas Baptist University and the University of Houston. He makes $100 a week teaching kids how to play soccer. He's working 6-7 hours a day. When we left Liberia, after 8 days of work on our team, he was paid $2,000. He literally earned in 8 days what he would earn in almost 20 weeks in Liberia. So what I need y'all to understand, when you support this show, we are placing money back in the hands of Black people in America and also in other parts. Because what I'm not going to do is travel to Africa and then say, I'm gonna give you $50. No, I'm gonna pay you what's right and what's fair. And so support us in what we do. Here's how you can give. The P.O. Box, we have it, 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered, PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com, Roland@RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We are building something, and let me be clear, it ain't gonna be gossip. It's not gonna be mess. I don't do reality people on this show because somebody has gotta speak truth to the news and the issues that impact our people. Larry, Greg, Reese, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Folks, I will see you guys tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Sorry for going long. That was not the plan today, but those things happen. I'll see you tomorrow. Ho!